Hey, welcome back. It's Sunday morning. I want to make a video to show what I got going on here. Talk about the lower powered class of radios. This would be like your normal style 40 channel radio. And I get a lot of questions from customers about amplifiers and whatnot, especially this little guy here. Pretty popular little amp. It's a box. So I wanted to touch on a few things. First off, I hear a lot of guys say that these amps don't last and that they burn up and stuff like that. And the fact of the matter is, if you operate the amp properly and you understand a couple things, it'll last you a long time. So I got another radio here I'm going to pop onto the screen in a second. Now, a radio like this, if you try to use this style here, which is kind of similar to what we're showing, but this is a higher power. So the problem is, you know, this radio, even after you do the slight alignment to it, which doesn't give you a whole lot, but it does help a little bit, the radio will never overpower this small amp. It's a good combination. Now that Richard, yeah, there might be some people out there that can make that Richard do a low power, but the problem is you're going to overdrive this little MOSFET amp and you're going to cause it to fail. 1 watt swinging, whatever that they may claim that they can make that Richard do, say you can make it do 1 watt and swing the whole 50. Well, you're going to smoke this thing. And I can't say for sure if that's what a lot of guys are running into, but they're probably using radios like dual final radios, stuff like that, that you really don't want to use with these. These are not made to, you know, take in a big amount of input power. So what these are made for, so if you have like a standard radio, and this is a great example because this has a factory controlled RF power right from the manufacturer, so it's a really good example. If you can make your factory radio go down to a low enough input power, we're talking dead key here for AM, you're never really going to have a problem. These are actually designed to take up to a 10 watt input carrier, and that's mainly for FM. These will work on FM. That's not saying that you can do that on AM, because as we all know, when you modulate that, if you're doing 100% modulation, you're going to be doing upwards of 40 plus watts PEP, which is going to smoke this thing. So what you want to keep in mind is if you keep your dead key low, I mean, I have this thing set up and I'll demonstrate it here in a minute. I think at a watt and maybe a little over a watt and 2/3, it does the full output power, and this radio is only doing maybe like 10 watts, something like that. So it doesn't need a lot of input power to get what the amplifier should do for you. Now, there are a couple specs on the internet that I think are wrong for these. You're not going to see 200 watts out of these. I mean, you might if you have a meter that's been, I guess, you know, peaked and tuned. I've heard people say that throughout the years. Yeah, I can peak and tune my meter, but if someone peaks and tunes their meter, well, of course, yeah, you can make a meter show anything. But the spec on these is 100 watts. So if you're seeing 100 watts out of it, you should be happy. Here, let me see. Output power, 100 watts. So stop at 100 watts. You don't. 125, 150, it doesn't make any difference in the real world. Like if I'm listening to you, I'm not going to know if you went from 100 to 150. It's not going to be a noticeable difference. So let's just take a look here. So we got our amp on, we got the radio all the way down, our mic gain's all the way up. So let's come over here and we'll take a zoom here. So we'll look at this is a 50 watt, this is just your carrier, so we'll just key up. So it's about 25 watts of carrier, which is perfectly fine. So if I come over here to the next side, meter over here, so this has a 250, I think you guys can see the peak hits on. So we're looking at the top here. Make that sit there. Hopefully that'll stay still. So I'll just key up and start talking. Now I'm just running the President mic right now, the 6-pin electret condenser. So hello radio, 1 2 3 4 5, check check check, 1 2 3 4 5. So we're pretty much right at that 100 watt mark, and that's really, you know, all this thing is designed to do. So And I'll tell you what, guys, if you're just running a radio like I showed you and you put something like this in line, they will notice a difference. You're going to have a big difference, noticeable difference. Now, if you go from this to like 400 watts would probably be about the next noticeable difference. And then really from there, you know, you're talking 1600 watts, which is kind of, you know, unreal in my view, but you know, a lot of people do what they need to do out there, so more power to them. So that's your 100 watts right there. So let's show that on the test equipment here. You know what we got going on. So I'm going to zoom this thing out a little bit here. There we go. That should get us where we want to be. So what I'm going to do is just plug in a audio tone into the radio. Let's turn our mic gain. Actually, we'll just keep it up. Thought maybe my function generator was already producing the tone, but it wasn't. I was just playing with this stuff earlier, and I usually just keep the output on. So the output is off right now. We can see our carrier there. Let me see here. Spectrum analyzer, what are we looking at here? There, we're looking at 10 kilohertz each way. So our center frequency is right in the middle, channel 20, and then channel 21 to the right, and channel, actually, well, it is actually, you know, in the frequency range is the next channel down, 19A. So anyways, let's turn the tone on. There's our tone. That is a fully modulated radio signal right there. We're reading with the amplifier on and everything, so you can see that you know, there's no splatter or anything into the adjacent channels, anything like that. Let's put this up here, which we can probably get both in the same window if we do this correctly. So there we go. So there's that. Turn off the tone. There's our carrier right there. So if you look at the volts peak to peak, excuse me, my voice, 42.4 if I put the carrier on, or the tone on. So it's not a full double of that. This is still a rather clean radio, so I did have to back the modulation down slightly in the service menu to run it a little cleaner with the amp, because if you run the service menu information into the radio, and you can still maintain a clean waveform if you turn the modulation basically up all the way. But when you run the amplifier with it, it gets a little dirty. The carrier starts to flatten out on the scope. So you really don't want that, and you'd rather have it like this. Because I would assume most people probably, if you're going to buy something like this, you're probably going to run it all the time. Maybe not, but in most cases, yes, probably so. So that's what we have there. Now again, I've showed these amps before. They're a little dirty. And when you span out into, you know, above 30 megahertz, there's some spikes and stuff. The only way around that is, again, to run a low pass filter, something to, you know, block that spurious emissions out, which they will do. So let's go back to the watt meters here. I'll show you guys with the tone. We're still keyed up. I'm surprised this thing hasn't got mad at me and started yelling with its timeout timer, but anyways, here's our 250 right there. So we'll just kind of focus on the watt meter there if we can. So I'll just put that tone back in, and you can see even with the tone, it's pretty much almost at 100. It's, I don't know what that would be, like 80 some watts right there. So there we goes our timeout timer, just like I thought. So yeah, I think, you know, the big mistake with these small little RM Italy jobs is guys are just simply overdriving them. If you don't overdrive them, and you just run like a normal radio into them, something, you know, along the lines of this that has RF power control. It doesn't have to be this, but this is a good example anyway. So I think they work really good. They are, like I say, a little dirty. A little low pass filter doesn't hurt anything if you care about that stuff. And you know, I can show you guys really quick, I guess, if anyone's interested to see what the radio's doing. Let me get that set up here. I can do that really quick. I just got to change a couple watt meter settings out on the bird. I'd like to see more radios start coming from the factory with an RF power control, and we're talking 40 channel radios, not the 10 meter stuff. So the McKinley has it, this radio has it. I'm not sure if some of the other smaller Presidents have it. I know I had an Adams that I tested, that didn't have it. So some of the smaller ones just don't have enough room, and they're compact, so you lose some features. The Taylor, President Taylor, that one didn't have it. It's a little more compact than this. Okay, so now the amplifier is off. So we still have our RF power all the way down. Let's put our President mic back in here. Let's see what we can do. Mic gain's all the way up. So back over here to our watt meter. You can see everything dropped. I didn't adjust anything on the test equipment, but the carrier, you know, it's way smaller now. So what do we got going on over here? 5 watts now down there. So yeah, that's what we were putting in. It's a little under 1.5 watts anyway, so not a whole lot of power putting in. And let's see if we can do this now over here. We got a 25 over here. So hello radio, 1 2 3 4 5. Hello radio, check check check, 1 2. So you guys can see, I mean, it maybe at the most on the peaks it's like 10 watts that was going in, but you know, that's all you need. You do not need to run 20-30 watts into these things to make them work properly. They don't need it. If you do, chances are it's going to shorten the life of it. And that's not saying, you know, if you have a high SWR, well, that just goes without saying that, you know, it's going to shorten it even more. So there's a couple key things to focus on. So let's turn up the RF power control a little bit here, so you can see we're at lowest setting and highest setting. I set it for just about 4 watts there. So if anybody's curious like what this thing will do with it all the way up, here we go. Hello radio, 1 2 3 4 5, check check check, 1 2 3 4 5, 1 2 3 4. So I don't know, 15-16 watts or so, just about what you would expect out of just a regular radio. Let's see if we can hear it. 1 2 1 2 3 4 1 2. This is just the stock President mic right here, and we're trying to listen to ourselves here on this icon. So that's what we got going on there. Of course, if I put the KPO mic on it, it would sound much better. So, in my opinion, I think it's just a better sounding mic than this President mic. But some guys like the President mic. I mean, I like it. It's okay. I prefer the KPO. It has just a better, clearer sound. So that's really it. I can show you guys on the test equipment, you know, with the tone going in and stuff, what we got going on. So let's do that really quick here, and then we're going to get out of here. So I got a couple of these Walker 2s available. Here, let me just show you guys what you would see here. Look at our computer screen if we can get this thing to, there we go. I don't know how well this is going to show up, but this is kind of what you get for this radio. It's really not too difficult. You know, if somebody wanted to pause this or something and look at it, it allows you to adjust the carrier level. Now it's only the high setting, so if you go into that service menu, it's only the high setting, so the low setting will just kind of correspond. So you guys seen where I had it. It's probably where most people would put the high setting, right at 4. And then they're telling you to adjust your modulation for 87%. That's too low in my opinion. That's about where they come out of the box anyway, so you can't get these a full 100%. You can get them pretty close, but, and of course I didn't dial this up all the way, because when I run the amp with it, it gets a little dirty on the scope. The carrier starts to pinch down a little bit, so you know, it's kind of what it is there. If you weren't running this with an amp, yeah, you could turn it up. You know, it looks good on the scope, just a regular radio. So anyways, let's take a look at that. I'll get it set up here, and we'll show you the high power view first. Let's make sure everything's dialed in here. There we go. So okay, let's move this back over here like that. You can see our power over here. 4-watt carrier, maybe just a touch over. Might as well just show the power first, I guess, with the tone, even though I just showed it with voice. What the heck. So our peaks on the right, average on the left. So there's our tone. So it's pretty much, 16 watts even with the tone. So let's move this up here. Let's look at our scope first. Carrier right there. So it's pretty good. I mean, you could turn it up just a little bit more in the service menu, but it doesn't make a huge difference. So nice clean waveform. Yeah, there's probably guys that'll say, well, that looks like a mud duck radio. Well, again, it's not a high power radio or anything like that. So, I mean, it's a nice clean talking radio. Here's our spectrum down here. I can try to, same thing, 10 kilohertz each side of the carrier. There's the carrier. Could probably even bring that a little bit more into range since we're running a lower power now. So yeah, but you can see how clean it is anyway. So that's what I got for you today. Just a brief little test video. What you would expect to see with just a normal radio, something that I think is a cool radio to run because it has a factory RF power. It has talkback, it has weather. You can do some cool stuff with it. It's got a couple memory channels that you can switch out. Right here, it's usually set 919 from the factory, but if you go in here, hold that into the menu, or wait, are we keyed up? Yeah, we're keyed up, so my apology there. Let's undo that. So yeah, so you got your colors, just like all the presidents can change colors. You have key beep, I always turn that off. Roger beep, which is your little president chime that they have. Tone, it's kind of like you can make it bassier or treble or more treble or geez, oh Pete's. So I run high cut, which this has from the factory. I like high cut. I don't like to hear the hiss. So dimmer, you can dim it down. That's where you can switch what you want, like, so you can make it whatever you want, and that would be the up position over there. So customize that however you want. And the same would be for the down position. So you get a couple quick things. Here's your SWR check right there. If you press that button in, President has a nice feature there. I think it's kind of ahead of its time for what it is. Actually, we just lost our menu. I think that's really it, though. It's not a real oh yeah, here's your mic type. So if you want to run a dynamic mic, you can, like something normal, like a, I don't know, like a D104 microphone, something like that, a Road King, probably like your, I don't know, SRA 198. A lot of guys like those. So I think those are all dynamic style microphones. The Electret would be like this microphone and this microphone. I think a Road Devil is also an Electret condenser. Probably a few others, so there's that. PA, you can just choose to shut it off, or honestly, I think what this is PA in. I think what it'll do is keep the CB radio receive out of the PA speaker, and I think if you switch this to out, I think it'll, like if you have a PA speaker hooked up to your radio, and you put this thing in PA, I think that it will play the CB sound over the PA speaker. I think. I'm not sure. Now, I haven't, you'd have to check the user's manual for that. It's been a long time since I've ever fooled with PA speakers and stuff like that. I'm really not really into that. Then you can reset all parameters right there. So there's really not a lot to this radio, but it's a nice radio. It's a little smaller probably than a Cobra 29, but it has a lot of features in it, more features by far than a Cobra 29. You got weather band right there. We're on a dummy load, so we're probably not going to pick anything up. Talk back, and pretty much the basic stuff. Nice USB jack there to charge stuff. So, your phone, smartphone, whatever you want to do. So yeah, that's really all I got for you. Everybody knows the 203P already, so there's really not much more to say about that. They work good. Like I say, don't expect more than 100 out of it. Yeah, you could probably push it a little harder, but the harder you push it, the harder it is on it. So, they work good just how they are. If you want more, of course, get something bigger, pushing things to the max is never really a good idea in my opinion. There's always bigger and better stuff out there. You know, run your stuff, you know, in a good fashion, and it'll last a long time. So take care. 7-3.